You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It's the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, hockey fan. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're living under a rock, Craig Berube fired as head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Your thoughts, Rosie?
This market just continues to be the center of attention, doesn't it? Holy, it's been anything but a boring springtime, even though there's no playoff hockey for these guys. Interesting as hell, man. All the talk about he's not going anywhere and they wouldn't spend the money and all signs point to him returning and they really like him, and then bam, he's fired. It's very interesting. Hey, I've been adamant on thinking, all you got to do is go back to, the 9 years of playoff hockey that they had before Craig Berube. What happened every single bloody time? They got ran out of the building. They played perimeter hockey. They were terrified. They didn't do any of the right things. Nothing that gave them success in the regular season translated to the playoffs. Let's bring Craig Berube in to get rid of the, the high risk plays, the turnovers, the refusal to, get it deep and go get it back, go bang and crash, go get, take away the time and space and, back pressure and have all those layers and bring in Craig to demand that and to provide that accountability to play a certain style of hockey. Well, this year, I mean, they went as far as they've gone in 20 years, year one under Craig Berube, with taking the Panthers to 7, who eventually won the whole thing. This year, I can't help but feel like they said, we're not doing it, Craig. We're not doing anything that you ask. We're not built for it. We don't want to. And I can't help but feel that they have given up on their coach and he lost the room, hence why he's not here anymore. But as much as, Craig Berube had his warts too, don't get me wrong. And the lineup decisions, some of the deployment of players was totally head scratching throughout the season. I understand that. I also understand the data and analytics said that, defensively, like some of the real important measurable things in the game, they were bottom of the barrel for. So I get it. And I mean, it just feels like a new era. It feels like things went stale, and it feels like this makes sense.
Firstly, I would say it was the right decision. Timing, a little weird for me. I honestly felt like this should have been Keith Pelly a month and a half ago, but so be it. The fit never made sense, Rosie, with John Chayka specifically and Craig Berube and sort of the ideologies, the way they wanted to play the game of hockey. It just never made sense. And I actually have to commend the Maple Leafs for making this decision now. It was going to be made at some point in time. Anytime somebody new comes in as GM, the clock ticks on when they're going to fire the coach, just plain and simple. And then on top of that, I was trying to think of like times when a coach came back from a catastrophic season the way the Maple Leafs just had unfold. And it's very rare. I just thought it was a ticking time bomb, and I thought the right decision was made here. I never thought the fit made sense with Chayka and Craig Berube.
They're pretty opposite, aren't they? One guy's a
Yep.
total new school, even though he's been around, but he was like cutting edge type of guy and came into the league, the youngest one ever, like so unconventional. And then Craig Berube is very much an old school hockey player, hockey coach. And it's just, especially with the season they had, it would have been an odd couple for sure to continue on with them. My fear, honestly, was that they were going to keep Berube around strictly because they didn't want to pay him to not coach the team anymore and have to go pay another coach to bring him into Toronto, which was asinine in my books, especially when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs and MLSE is worth what they're worth. If they're going to start going down that road, that would have really pissed me off. But it sounds like they're making hockey decisions for hockey-based reasons. I think this is, one of them. It comes out $4.5 million. I think Craig Berube was making. I heard it as low as 3, but it's $9 million over the next 2 years if he doesn't get hired by someone else that they're going to eat. And that makes a difference to a company and a business. And it is a business at the end of the day. So I am pretty happy that they're still making plays based on what's best for the hockey club and the future of winning. And they just proved it right here. So that's off the table, which I love. The one thing to me after this season is multiple players had said, well, we know what the issue was. We know what wasn't wrong in that room, but we'll just keep that to ourselves, and that's our business and stuff. And it's like, wow, you just said something that's very cut and dry, clear and obvious that you're not going to tell us. I couldn't help but feel like that shines some light on the fact that this coach, we can't even do it anymore. We're hearing the same thing over and over again. We don't buy into what he's selling, and the season very much looked that way as well. I don't think they could be as bad as they did, and it screamed to me a bunch of guys that were just like, we're not buying into this, and it was just complete dysfunction for the majority of the season. And for that reason, I think as much as any others, you've got to move on and bring in a new voice to that locker room.
Bottom line, as far as we've seen, like there was no chance that you can bring back Craig Berube after what transpired throughout the season. Like by count, there was probably 60 of the 82 games where you had severe questions about the work ethic and do these guys even want to be here? And then like the cherry on top, I brought this up a lot, was the game in St. Louis. Like Berube won the Stanley Cup there, and you show up and you put 14 pucks on net and you get dismantled by the St. Louis Blues post trade deadline when they deal half their team. Like it was a tough look all season long. I thought the writing was on the wall. I think you can also put to bed this ideology or this narrative out there that the Maple Leafs are being cheap. And I've been forthright in saying it. I think this shows that they're going to be smart, but they're not going to be cheap with the way they handle the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because you're so right. That's nearly $10 million on the hook right now for somebody who's not going to coach for you. But I think ultimately, again, big picture, right decision. John Chayka will speak later on, by the way, with Matt Sundin regarding the future, what the next coach is going to look like. But the statement put out by Chayka earlier today, this decision is more reflective of an organizational shift and an opportunity for a fresh start than it is an evaluation of Craig. We're grateful for his leadership, professionalism, and commitment to the Maple Leafs organization. What else are they going to say? He was fired. Don't mince words. Parted ways is the direct wording from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was fired. It makes a lot of sense. I thought it was the right decision. Timing a bit weird, but I like that they did their due diligence. They came in, did Chayka and Sundin. Within a week on the job, they made the decision to move on here from Craig Berube.
And how much of that decision do you think was based on this new, development that they have the first overall pick unexpectedly? Like, I can't help but think that,
good question.
Like that really to me felt like, holy shit, this is obviously paired with the Chayka and Sundin hiring, but it just feels like a new era, especially with that pick, these two new guys. And like you said, Berube just didn't seem to fit with it. And you pair that with how they played in front of them this year. How do you come back from that? And I mean, over this past week with the viral hashtags of whatever it was, but I mean, Leafs media is loud, it is strong, and it was overwhelming sentiment that a lot of the fans and the people that follow and care about this team wanted to see a coaching change. And I know that, we just had Petty on, and he's like, if you listen to the fans, you'll soon be sitting with them. But I can't help but feel with all the things that have come to fruition here the last couple of weeks, that it just kept pushing the needle further and further towards the fire Berube narrative.
I don't buy that though, Rosie, because if that was the case, then John Chayka wouldn't have been hired. I truly feel like the media attention and the market and Twitter and social media had no sort of input on this decision. I just think on the surface it made too much sense not for John Chayka not to do it, right? Like it just, the ideologies didn't mix at all. Like we all called it. I mean, when you're thinking outside the box and you want somebody data driven, like Craig Berube hockey was very like sandpapery, put the puck in deep, grind the opposition to death, where I think puck possession is going to be a bigger tale with these guys now.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll never know. I certainly don't think it helped. I can't help but think that, you get the time to I know they haven't like flown down to Phoenix or whatever, but if you're telling me that Chaika and Sundin have been in their seats as long as they have been, which is not a long amount of time, but plenty of time to pick up the phone, talk to John Tavares, talk to Austin Matthews, talk to William Nylander, talk to Morgan Riley, these guys who have been around and been like, what was it like in the locker room here? Where do you think things went wrong? Why don't you tell me from your perspective what it felt like to be on this club this year? You're going to read between the lines, and obviously they didn't hear enough to say no. Like, the guys want to fix this problem. The guys want to come back strong. The guys understand what happened this year and they think they can rectify it. And Craig Berube is part of that process. It didn't go that way by any stretch as far as, the results speak to. So, it just makes sense, right? And it pisses me off that, this season was this way, and that if it is in fact the idea that he lost the room and the team just quit on him, they quit on him for months and months. And like the play this season was so uninspiring and so disgusting to watch. You talked about the St. Louis game. There were multiple opportunities to come out, whether it was like just dropping the ball and like blowing a lead the night before, and then it's like, oh, well, they're going to snap back and like have a big response. The puck drops and they're even flatter. Or they come out and get shelled in the first period. You think there's going to be a big response in the second, and they just get shelled again and don't have any answer for it. Their body language was brutal. Their facial expressions were brutal. Their responses, the way they got up for games, the way, like, any situation you put it in, they were dog shit. And if that is quitting on their team, I have a lot of trouble with that, because you are a professional. And I mean, an entire season for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it kind of feels like it's sacred. To just throw it away is just gross to me. And I just don't think that's the way you go about it. But nonetheless, if that is what the players wanted, they've got what they've wanted. Now the shift and the focus is all moving towards who's going to come and sit in that seat and what is that going to look like. And with Chaika at the helm, I can't help but think it's going to be interesting.
You're right, though. Like, it's not getting enough play in this market. It's all about Craig Berube, and people want this guy out. And there was a whole movement on social media, as we referenced. But how much of a role did the players play in this? Like, it was disgusting, like stomach hurting watching this team play throughout the season. And I think the big thing that did it for me, and people got on us quite a bit about backing Craig Berube, I saw in year one what these guys are capable of doing and how they're capable of playing when it matters most in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I saw what buy-in looks like. This past season was a joke of a season, disconnected, zero chemistry, zero leadership. Now, ultimately, the coach has to wear quite a bit of that. But, dude, the players have to wear quite a bit of this too. Like, this is another coach in Toronto. See you later.
It is kind of interesting how unscathed the players were in this season. Like, I'm sorry, but the coach only has so much control, and I sometimes think that it's overplayed how big of an impact a coach has. I mean, it's big. Don't get me wrong; it's the biggest impact on the team besides anyone with skates on, without question. But like, you saw what it looked like there after Christmas. There was about 12 games where they played Craig Berube hockey, and it was unbelievable to watch. They defended, they scored goals, they dominated teams. It didn't matter. Like, even the Florida Panthers, who I know they didn't have their best this season, but they were like, what is this we're feeling? All right, we know what to do against these Leafs. We'll just run them out of the building. And the Leafs just throttled down even further and said no, and just ran them out of the building. And they were just stunned. And we were like, holy shit. And then they did it the next night. And they went on that road trip and they smashed Colorado. And we were like, this is it. This is what we all wanted. This was the formula. We have all the skill. We have the talent. We can do the things that need to be done with our stars, but you have to get over that finish line and buy in a little harder and be a little grittier and take away the time and space and commit yourselves to playing fucking harder. It's not always float around and wait for the lane to open up, and I can do this from the perimeter, and I ran out of space. A backhand sauce will fix it. It just blew up in their face every playoff season, and you wanted to see them take what they had, which was lots, and then apply it in a way that is more conducive to winning long term, which I don't think they were demanded to do under Sheldon Keefe. Hence the hiring that everyone seemed to be on board with. And the players just completely said no this season. And again, you saw what it looked like for about 10 or 12 games, but that was just a blip on the radar. The rest was so uninspiring and so uncommitted. And I do agree that the players 100% got off the hook this season. Everyone was just screaming at Craig Berube. And, right or wrong, they weren't going to play for him. And I think that that message got received by management, hence where we are sitting today.
Yep, Craig Berube out as the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Our Super Chat charity partner is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. We got Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period NHL Insider, dropping by in about 15 minutes here at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to check out the Leafs Nation. .com. So potential replacement options. That's automatically where my head went as soon as the news came down when it came to Craig Berube. And the other thing too is like the timing. And I understand they met with this guy over the weekend, according to the insiders. But like the timing is interesting with the whole Bruce Cassidy thing coming out yesterday. We know he's available. Some other names I put out there: Peter Laviolette, Dean Evison, Jay Woodcroft, who's on Anaheim's bench right now. We all saw the meme against Edmonton. Gerard Gallant. I don't know about you. Chris Knobloch's unemployed for me. He's going to get fired given everything that came. So Chris Knobloch's on my list. Manny Malhotra's with Abbotsford. DJ Smith. Anybody else ring a bell for you? Do you look at one clear-cut favorite right now or somebody you'd love to bring in? Aside from Cassidy, of course. Like he's been out there for a while now.
Oh, the timing. Quenneville. If he was available, man, I would be clamoring to get him in that seat. I just think he's one of the best, like modern day dynasty in Chicago, and look what he's doing here with the Ducks. I was vocal about that when he was still, in purgatory, and he's showing what he can do with that Ducks team right now. I'd love to have him. Obviously not available. Even rumblings about, do the Lightning move on from John Cooper, which I don't think is reasonable. There's some no-brainers out there that could happen if the stars aligned. But I can't help but think that Chaika is going to go off script here and find someone or have someone in mind who hasn't
a Wendy's employee, maybe.
I don't know. I'll tell you. I mean, all the guys you just mentioned, for the most part, like Laviolette coached me. I really liked him. He had a really good mix of like accountability, no bullshit, but also you wanted to play for him. It was easy to get on board with Lavi and try to produce what he was preaching for him and come together. I think he could be a good guy. Again, a lot of those guys you mentioned, this day and age and where this team is at and Chaika and data and analytics, the guys you mentioned, I could see a lot of them being like, not some recycled dinosaur. I could see that being from a lot of the fan base and being on Twitter and all that people want something new and fresh. My worry with that is we go right back to the Sheldon Keefe era, where it's this new coach who's had some success, maybe in the minors or something, and he comes in and he's a player's coach, and all the players are like, oh yeah, no more accountability. We can go back to doing whatever we want, like in junior. And you just ring around the rosy back to where you were. Maybe you can, maybe you put some pieces together, get back in the playoffs, but it's like, yeah, no one demanded that you played the proper way. And when you get down to the nitty gritty of the playoffs, as we've seen a million times, you need to have a little bit more of that. And all of a sudden it's a country club again and the players are calling the shots. I mean, I really, really want to avoid that because it'll feel like we're going backwards. So this hire is going to be huge. It's going to be interesting. I don't know if we're going to get any semblance of where their heads are at with this press conference or whatever it's going to be here in about an hour. Where these guys' heads are at as far as Chaika and Sundin are, and if they have anyone in mind. Obviously they wouldn't say that, but it's going to be interesting. And I can't help but think with Chaika at the helm, it might be something outside of the box that people haven't really considered. And I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like automatically my head went to like Pittsburgh and Dan Muse. Like that came out of nowhere, Dan Muse to Pittsburgh, and he did a pretty damn good job. And I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to the NHL. And I like guys who have been there before, but I think I have to evolve with the times. The Maple Leafs are evolving with the times. And I'm not necessarily against like a newcomer coming in, because what do we talk about when Craig Berube was fired? Hell, everybody in the press box talked about it. How difficult it is for a coach to win who's won before with a new team. The data and the stats tell us it's not going to happen. It's always sort of a newcomer that comes in the mix and finds that magic elixir to win. Having said that, I don't view the Maple Leafs as a Stanley Cup contender, and that's why I don't think Bruce Cassidy is a guy who's going to look at this market and be like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Let's do this. But it also depends on what his options look like, what the Maple Leafs are selling for their future. Matthews is 2 years away. I know people hate when we bring it up sometimes out of market, but McDavid's 2 years away. Like, you've got to think about a variety of different factors when you're an incoming coach, right?
Yeah, it feels like there's, we're in kind of the middle of a transitional period, maybe.
Yeah.
You've got these new guys up in management. You just acquired the first overall pick. All of a sudden, your youth is starting to look like something you could build around with. The Cowens, the Nyes, this new guy that comes in. I know you don't have your next 2 draft picks, but what are we doing? Are we kind of retooling and trying to win a cup here? It seems like that's going to be extremely difficult to do based just on the simple math and reality of where they sit with prospects and draft picks and what's going on with the team itself. Are they going to do a rebuild here? Does Austin stick around? Does he play one more year?
Mm-hmm.
Do they move him after, this year and get something for him? What's Willie's future in this city? It's hard to say. And you're not sure if a coach is coming in to try to, win soon, or if they're coming in to like start this new era around this new number 1 overall pick and transition maybe the hard way and lose a couple of years and developing some. I don't know where they're going to go. So it's kind of like they're hanging in the middle ground right now. And the answers to those questions will be answered. Might take a little while, but I think that this team, especially with, that first overall pick, and I can't see, like, if Matthews can show anything that he was previous to these past 2 seasons, that's obviously going to help. If Willie buys in and gives his best, if we get off the Morgan Riley contract and if we get some free agent signings, which I know it's not as deep as it appeared, a year ago, but there's guys that could come in and fill some voids. Matthew Nyes could be better. Easton Cowan's got another season under his belt. Can Max Domi find a place where he can contribute, consistently? You'd think hopefully on the bottom 6, but like there's can our goaltenders be stronger? Is Tanev going to be healthy next year? Like, there's a very easy world where this is a playoff team still. I don't think they're going to be a contender, but I don't think they could be any worse than they were this past season. And with the changes they've made and come to, the understanding of what they need, getting the first overall, I feel like they're a playoff team. And if this coach that comes in can really get these guys on board and find some chemistry and get everyone on the same page, this thing could turn around and look a lot better, at least than it did this last season, which is not saying much. I can't believe what we just watched here, but this new coaching hire, whoever the guy is, you can't help but think he's going to get more out of that group than what we just saw.
Ultimately, to your point, when asked about this past season for the Maple Leafs, I always resort to it can't get much worse. So I'm open to anything at this point in time. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, head on over to theleafsnation.com for essays and more reaction to today's news. A lot of editorials up right now, as I think you're so right. It's a new era of Maple Leafs hockey, and I do want to ask this with Pagnotta coming up here in about 5 minutes. How much of an impact, was made because of the first overall pick, where I think, to your point, Rosie, you get the chance to select a McKenna or a Stenberg or have the ability to draft first overall. How much more sense it would make to have a coach who's going to be here more than just like one season. Like we all agreed that Craig Berube at some point in time, whether it was now or 6 months or a year from now, didn't have he wasn't going to be here long term.
Yeah, and it's just, a new era, it feels like. I mean, when they hired him, they, were coming off a bunch of playoff losses. They're considered contenders, and they just needed to get over the hump. And what was the problem? Well, we need this guy to kind of bring some accountability and play a little heavier. And they brought him in, and now it just doesn't seem like they're in the same position at all. And to continue on with Craig Berube, it just doesn't seem like it would fit. And people were calling for his head in November, and I was saying I didn't agree that was the play. I really didn't. I didn't feel like the players had quit on him yet. Maybe they had, but now more than then, it seems like this is the right call. And by all accounts, with the insiders and all the rest of it, say what you want about those guys, there was reason for them to believe they were going to hold on to Berube, and a lot of people raised their eyebrows about that. You could argue for good reason, but something seems to have happened or changed, and they went on and did it. Or was it the first overall pick? Did they talk to Matthews or some of the leadership on this team and learn some things that maybe weren't previously discussed? But however you slice it, that reporting was wrong or something changed, and they are moving in a different direction than Craig Berube. And they obviously got the blessing of the ownership and higher ups that say, yeah, let's eat this contract and go to get someone else for the betterment of this hockey club. Which, again, like you mentioned, with all the backlash and reporting on them being cheap and nickel and diming and it all being about the bottom line and being a big organization, corporate machine, I think they just put a little bit of a cap on that, as they have been willing to go out and, you think Matt Sundin was cheap to get him to leave his life in Sweden to come to Toronto and get into this thing. He wasn't. They're going to eat $9 million most likely of Craig Berube's salary. So I'm glad that's off the table, because I couldn't stand that. That's the one thing about Toronto you should never have to hear.
In support of Sick Kids, Zach Green sends us 5 different super chats. Really appreciate this. So I'll ruffle through them right now. He says, next coach, Cassidy War, maybe Gary Roberts. Jay Rosehill is also an option if you commute to his FD. I'm guessing this is your boy.
I don't know who this guy is.
Oh, okay. He also writes in AM34, Coach Killer, changed my mind. AM34, Captain, no, the C means cancer. Matthew needs to be traded for a boatload now. It's a flurry of super chats, man. Tell us how you really feel, Nikki B, on Chaika. So Zach putting this point across, and I wonder what this means ultimately for Austin Matthews. And I know we're going to have this conversation a lot over the next couple weeks, as we brought up earlier this week and last week too with Dave Pagnotta, who's coming on momentarily. Moldaver, Matthews are set to meet at some point in time over the next couple of weeks with Chaika and Sundin. But I could only wonder and think that, the star players are probably a bit more relieved that Craig Berube is gone. I can't speak for them, but just the way they played the game, the way they looked at times, and the restrictions it looked like Craig Berube's system put on these guys, I think generally speaking, guys are pretty happy with this move, no?
I mean, all signs point to that, right? And, like with the Austin Matthews things, I'm kind of torn on it, man, because I realize that now players have, like back in the day, it was, you could be like a 24-year-old superstar and you're still treated like a pigeon. They don't pay you. You're still paying your dues. There's no such thing as being a UFA or having any kind of power. The no move clauses were so much they're so less common. And nowadays, you have that power. And I think Austin Matthews did. I get the feeling that he flexed it a little bit here in this situation. And, if you have that power and you're in that room and you see a problem and you understand it and you want to relay that to management and they take your word with some weight, I'm okay with that. On the other hand of it, it's like, Austin, we haven't seen any semblance of your superstardom in 2 years. I know they went by fast, but that's the fact of the matter. We haven't seen that guy that can win Rockets and Hearts and just be the best player, not just playing that night, but like the top handful in the entire league. We haven't seen that in 2 years. You are the captain. And if you're the captain, that means your allegiance for this team is first and foremost.
All right, I believe we've lost Rosie. You're going to bring him back in, and he'll finish his point here when it comes to the big decision, the big announcement today, folks, that Craig Berube has been fired as head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. To the best of our knowledge, we believe John Chaika and Matt Sundin will address the media in an hour from now. If you're listening in podcast form, our apologies. But that's just sort of a timeline of how things are going. Dave Pagnotta is coming up here in a couple minutes to sort of break down, dissect what's next for this Maple Leafs team, what led to this decision. It sounds like the Maple Leafs notified Craig Berube early this morning after meetings and rounds and discussions over the weekend. So as mentioned, they certainly did their due diligence when it came to this process. It's hard to put together that in one fell swoop, in a week on the job, John Chaika and Matt Sundin, you want to talk about a dream start or a scenario start, that you get the first overall pick and then you make the decision to move on from Craig Berube. Rosie, I was just bringing up sort of the timeline, and in 1 week, so much has happened under Chaika and Sundin already.
Yeah, sorry about that. Our system's having some weird thing going on here. It's pissing me off, but no, it's been a wild ride. I mean, when they missed the playoffs and it was inevitable, in that last 12 games of the season was such a slog, and I was just like, what on earth are we going to talk about? How painful is this going to be not to watch playoff hockey? And it's been only wild, exciting, controversial, super, fireworks everywhere you look. And that's it's been a blast. It's exciting. I'm glad we don't have to just keep slogging about all the negative things. There seems like there could be light at the end of the tunnel. At least there is hope or optimism or something to talk about. It has been a wild ride, from the hiring of the new big boys in management, first overall pick, all the Austin talks, the insider leaks, now the firing of Craig Berube. Inevitably, there's going to be an announcement of who they hire, and everyone will jump on that and digest it. So it's pretty awesome, man. I couldn't, as bad as that season was, and not watching playoff hockey right now with the Maple Leafs involved has been brutal. This has been a hell of a ride this spring.
Just talking to Bruce Boudreau, he's going to drop by in about 20 minutes to weigh in on this. No doubt, I think a lot of free agent head coaches are probably excited today at the opportunity to maybe coach the Toronto Maple Leafs, among them Bruce Boudreau. So we'll get his thoughts here on Craig Berube being fired, and sort of paint the picture of what's next, what that process looks like. And imagine you're Craig Berube too. Like, you have 2 years left at 4.5 sheets per season. Like, and I respect coaches for coming back quickly. Like, I would just sail off into the sunset, travel the world, and just wine and dine for that 4.5 a year, man.
Well, I'm sure he's disappointed, man. It's, he's known he's getting paid that money since he signed that a few years ago. So it's not like it's a new surprise to him. I imagine he's disappointed. What does that do to his credibility and ability to still be in the league in some capacity? I don't know what his future holds, but regardless of the money, which he's always known he's getting, and it's certainly nice, and he's set for life and all the rest of it, he's got to be disappointed right now. I don't know if he saw it coming. It seemed like there was a lot of momentum towards he's going to come back and he's going to still coach this team. Obviously that's not happening. I don't know how by surprise this has taken him, but disappointment, especially, like, how frustrating would that be, coaching that team, trying to get the most out of it, whether you thought what he did was right or not. He's doing to his best ability what he thought is right. He knows what it looks like. He's felt it. He's taken a team from dead last in the entire National Hockey League to winning the Stanley Cup in the course of a handful of months. He knows what it looks like when it's working right and when it's running. And to get that out of this team this season, and then to get canned for it, I can't imagine the frustration that Berube is feeling. It is what it is. It's a nature of the beast when you're a coach in the NHL. And again, people will thank him for his service and move on, but everyone's eyeballs are now squared firmly on that open seat and who's going to fill it.
No question about that. So some names I threw out there earlier on that are available right now: Bruce Cassidy, Peter Laviolette, Dean Evison, Jay Woodcroft, Gerard Gallant. Woodcroft, of course, an assistant right now with Anaheim, but yeah, I mean, a promotion, I think he'd be available to at least have a conversation. Even John Gruden, I think I'd throw his name in the conversation, currently the head coach at the Marlies. We think Chris Knobloch's going to be canned. How do you not can him if you're Edmonton now? Malhotra, who, of course, was an assistant on this bench a couple years back. DJ Smith also was an assistant back in the day with this team that moved on to Ottawa, then LA this past season. Other names, Patrick Waugh, like there's it'll be interesting to see how they dissect everything now over the next little while and how the process looks. But I think much similar to the way we hope they navigated through the GM search, I want to see that now with the head coach. Like, from a timeline standpoint, I would just have somebody in place by the draft. Like, there's some options out there. Now do your homework. Well,
the homework's the big thing, right? I mean, these higher ups all talk about alignment and all their buzzwords. So these interviews are going to be huge. And again, a theme here is would love to be a fly on the wall for some of these conversations. Like, what is Chaika's process to finding out this is the guy that we're going to hire? Obviously, other people are going to be involved in that, but in those meetings, what are the questions you're going to ask, and how do you want the guy to respond, and what's going to make you lean towards one candidate over the other? It needs to be, obviously you need to understand what happened this year. You need to understand where they've fallen short. You need to bring numbers into the equation. You need to have the data to back up your reasoning for it. You need to, understand what a good team looks like and have that data. Like, you're going to turn Chaika on by presenting factual information that you can put down on a piece of paper. So the guy's got to do that. If any of those guys are that way, if they're not, you better get on board with it, because I don't think that they're going to have anyone that doesn't lean a little bit heavier on that than maybe Craig Berube did. But I don't know, and again, we're not part of those conversations, so it's kind of hard to have a hard opinion on it. It's like we have such little information on these guys, but like Malhotra, he played a long time through, old school days. He kind of knows what that's like. But I don't think he's an old school coach or is a dinosaur by any stretch. He's having success in the minor leagues, dealing with those younger players and those prospect type guys. And he's also been in this organization, which I think is huge. You have to know what this looked like, what it felt like, what the process has been, where they've fallen short, all the buzz and the feeling and the vibes and the pressure and the scrutiny that it's like to be part of the Maple Leafs. He's been there. He understands it. I'm not endorsing him as my pick, but his name kind of pops off as checks quite a few boxes here. Checks quite a few boxes where you go to the other guys, some of them that you mentioned, I'm kind of like, what a roll of the dice. Like, he doesn't know what's been going on here. He doesn't know what this feels like. He's starting at the ground level. I feel like Malhotra, and again, I don't know him personally, and he might not interview and blow the hair back of any of these guys at all, for all I know, but he seems to check a lot of the boxes when you first look at what's needed to come in here.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, don't forget to check out theleafsnation.com. A lot of great pieces already up there, editorial pieces at that, breaking down this news. Craig Berube out as the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Is bringing in Dave Pagnotta, NHL Insider, from the fourth period. Dave, thank you so much for doing this. What was your initial reaction when everything went down earlier today?
Guys, not shocked. There was no guarantee, even though it seemed last week that they were leaning in the direction of keeping him. There was no guarantee that was going to be the case. It was all contingent on how that meeting that they had, how that get-together over the weekend played out. And the Leafs basically put it out there. This is what our direction is. And does that fit with you? Can you, I presume, adjust some of your coaching tactics and structure to meet what we're looking to do? Hence the organizational shift term that was used in the release. I'd really like to know, and I hope everybody asks them today, what that organizational shift means. What's the definition of that in their eyes? Because that will probably also dictate the type of head coach that they're going to want to bring in. But, after initial discussions seemed positive, but clearly after they sat down and kind of mapped out their whole game plan here, it didn't jive with the system, style, structure, whatever, that clearly Craig Berube brings with his coaching tactics. So, more shutdown, more of a physical type of presence, more attention to defensive details, as opposed to what I would imagine is going to be a little bit more of an offensive-minded type of deployment, especially when what Chaika has been acknowledging has been reshaping the blue line and utilizing that as the primary force to drive the offense, at least, getting it into the ozone. So more fast pace, more offensive driven, still being responsible. But I think that's probably the type of coach that they would look for. But I want clarity on exactly what that means, what organizational shift means once Chaika talks to the media in a couple hours or an hour.
And You mentioned that, the reporting that came out was that they were leaning towards keeping him. Obviously, that's not from nothing. That was for a reason. Turned out to be wrong. But do you get the sense that anything changed within the organization to make them make this decision?
Well, so the notion last week, Rosie, was that Keith Pelly and that end of the organization was comfortable in keeping Berube around. This seems to be, and I hope this is the case for their sake and for the fans' sake, that this is the decision of the GM and Sundin, executive advisor, whatever he is, that their vision of what this roster is going to evolve into doesn't meet the system and the style that Berube brings to the table from a coaching side. So I think because of that, my assumption there is that there was a disconnect from that side of things. They acknowledged in the release how good of a coach Craig Berube is, and I think he's a really good coach. He just hasn't fit for this group this past season, and clearly doesn't fit with how they're going to mold this roster and mold this team moving forward. So I think the initial perception, and again, their initial conversation Chayka had with Berube seemed to be positive. But once they got to the nuts and bolts of all of this and opened things up and said, here, these are the guts of what we're doing, clearly there's a disconnect, and that's why they ultimately went in this direction. And I'm curious to see where they go. This wouldn't surprise me if they go first-year NHL head coach type. I'd probably be a little surprised if they go veteran-type presence that emphasizes the similar traits that Berube does, because that just wouldn't make sense. You just keep Chief. But I wouldn't be shocked if they go a younger route. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see what their approach is going to be.
Much similar to the Leafs, I have to do my due diligence. So Bruce Cassidy, any chance Bruce Cassidy's in the mix? And number 2, John Cooper. Any chance John Cooper could be in the mix for this?
John Cooper, no. I'll stop you there. He's staying in Tampa. Cassidy, look, if I'm the Leafs, because you're going to do your due diligence, I think you have to at least have a conversation there, or at least approach and see if you can. He's going to eventually interview with Edmonton. He's going to also eventually interview with LA. He hasn't already. I know there's a report out there, but he hasn't. So if you're the Leafs, for a coach as good and as highly regarded as Bruce Cassidy, I think you have that conversation. I just don't know how desirable Toronto is from his side of things, to be perfectly honest.
Now, how much weight do you think the players' opinion, if they were talked to about Craig Berube, went into this decision of moving on from him?
I'd be surprised if some commentary wasn't taken into account. We reported earlier this week that Austin Matthews and his agent will meet with Chayka and Sundin in the next few weeks. So they haven't had the face-to-face. I'm sure the lines of communication are relatively open. I don't think that would have been the be-all, end-all in terms of the final decision or the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, from them making this decision. But you want to take some of that into account. Now, they obviously weren't around for exit meetings. So you have to, put in a little extra work and have those discussions, whether it was in person with whoever's still in town or, a quick little phone call was made by just listening exclusively to what the players had to say. But again, I think it factors in. You have to do all of that. So I think this is more of whatever vision that Chayka and Sundin have, that, Chief's probably not the guy to maximize the output of whatever this lineup is potentially going to look like. And I think that also goes into account of improving the numbers and giving guys like Austin Matthews and William Nylander and Tavares and Nyes, et cetera, and presumably McKenna, the best avenue and the best opportunities to succeed, to exploit their offensive talents, which we've seen some of their numbers dip a little bit, obviously.
It's pretty crazy that it's been a week of the Chayka Sundin administration. So much has happened, and namely getting the first overall pick, right, Dave? Like, how much of an impact do you think that had in this decision? Because Rosie brought it up earlier. it makes a lot more sense to start somebody fresh with like a Gavin McKenna or a Stenberg, as opposed to, let's face it, Craig Berube was on the hot seat from puck drop of the season if they kept him around.
Yeah, and again, how are you going to exploit those talents of whoever it is? Again, assuming it's Gavin McKenna, is a more physical defensive type of structure the best spot for him to immediately develop at the NHL level? Probably not. Not for the type of player that he is. Now, that doesn't mean you're giving the player free range. They've got to adjust to the NHL level, and they've got to adjust to whatever system they're brought in. But you still want to give them the best opportunity to succeed, because their success typically leads to the team's success. And the same thing goes for Austin and Nyes and your top guys. If you're giving them an opportunity to do what they can do, that's usually a good thing. So we'll see. Obviously, I would assume that Jake is going to properly define what this shift is going to look like as much as he can publicly. But yeah, I think part of that also entered the equation. We're getting one of these two kids, or they've got their eye on the prize on one of them. Is this current head coach or this current staff and system that's in place going to benefit this kid in the first year? I think that came into account too.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the timelines on decisions to be made so far in this short amount of time, they all seem to be fairly interesting. What do you think the timeline and the hiring of a new coach is going to be like here?
Well, I would imagine they'd want to, unless one of their potential candidates that they want to talk to is on one of the playoff teams that are out there right now, I'd imagine they'd kind of want to get this done probably, within a month. Get it done before the draft, get it done in the next few weeks, because there is competition, right? Like LA's actively looking for a new head coach right now. DJ Smith is part of that equation. He was their interim, but they're going through that full process right now. All indications are Edmonton is as well, and presumably Knobloch's going to be available, technically. So you've got two other teams that are looking for a head coach at the moment. And we don't know what's going to happen with Vegas. Maybe that's a fourth team. Remember, Torts is signed to the end of this season. Things are looking good that he may stick around, but it's no guarantee right now. So you've got, two other teams, possibly three, that you're competing with. Rosie, I've got to imagine you're probably looking at a month from now. You want to get this kind of wrapped up at least a week before the draft.
To wrap, do you have any semblance or idea of how players truly felt about Craig Berube in Toronto in 2 seasons?
Every indication that I've been given from talking to these guys has been pretty positive. There's a lot of respect for him. They like him. I think there was frustration. There was frustration with how some of these guys were being deployed. But I don't think this was a point where anybody was like, "Get this guy out of here. I can't deal with this guy anymore." But I do know there was some frustration with how some of the usage was. But I think everybody in that room fully respects Craig Berube, and I haven't been suggested otherwise.
Do you think they would have consulted Austin Matthews, or is this a move above him? Like, do you talk to star players in a situation like this?
Yeah, you should. And going back to what I said, because they didn't have those exit meetings, you want to at least get some kind of vibe from your guys in the room on how that relationship is. And if some of those frustrations echoed what management is looking to change within the organization, then it kind of just amplifies their decision to say, okay, we need to bring in somebody else that's going to have better use for some of our talent that we have, and for some of the type of talent that we want to bring in. But again, I don't think it was whether it was Austin or Willie or Tanev or whomever, or a collective group. I don't think that was the final, or the ultimate decision maker. I think it was a correlation and a combination of a variety of things, and a lot of it primarily being whatever this team is going to look like down the road.
Okay, Dave, great stuff, great reporting, and we'll talk. I believe you're coasting on Friday. Appreciate your time today.
You got it. See you, boys.
Thanks, Bags.
Anytime. That's Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period occasional host, as you guys know, here on Leafs Morning Take, back with us on Friday, dissecting the news that Craig Berube has been fired by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm just really curious the player aspect in all this, and how much they weighed in on this decision, if they weighed in at all. Like, you would think when Sundin and Chaika came aboard, they made a few calls and talked to a few guys around the team just to sort of get a lay of the land of what's happening. Like, I would automatically think that would be the case. No, Rosie?
Oh, I think you'd be insane not to. And
Yeah.
a guy like Chaika is, what's the point of data? What's the point of analytics? It's gathering as much information as you possibly can. Do you not think that moving on from a head coach, that getting some information by the team that he's coaching would just be paramount in your decision making? I'm not saying put it in the players' hands or let them run the show. I don't like that avenue either, but you absolutely pick their brains and try to get some information out of them that could help, put that package together, to look at it, analyze it, talk about it with the powers that be, and then finally come to a decision. I think you're insane if you don't at least talk to the players, especially if you're a guy like Chaika or Sundin, who have not been around this whole season. Like, it's not like they're in a position to say, I know everything that's going on here. I don't need to talk to anyone. I don't need to know what the players think. I'll make the calls. You'd be insane not to do that. And I don't think that would be the case, especially knowing who's running the show, who loves to gather as much information as possible.
So I believe in the press release, it talked about this funny, like the coach, it'll be up to the new coach about the assistants. Like, everybody's just deferring. They're deferring. Like, Pelly deferred to the GM. The GM's now going to defer to the head coach, and off we go. But I'm curious about Steve Sullivan, former Leaf, has got the ties to John Chaika, and Mike Van Ryn does as well. What that means for the rest of the bench now, even Newsy Lalonde, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, literally everything's on the table. Like, we have no idea who's going to come in. We don't know where they're leaning. I do like the idea, and that's why I brought up Malhotra, is that you need someone who kind of gets Toronto. It's different. It's unique, especially where they're sitting right now in this era and whatever pocket this is that they find themselves. I think you need someone that has at least some bit of familiarity with the organization. Maybe they stay within. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting as hell. And shortly here, the powers there that in Chaika and Sundin, they're going to speak, and hopefully we get, some way to read between the lines on where they're leaning towards. I know they're going to be careful and measured in how they speak, because they understand that one slip of the tongue on one word or one phrase and the whole market will go wild with it. So I'm not expecting a ton, but I hope we can read between the lines and get some semblance of where their heads are at.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as we bring in guest number 2 on the day. It's none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Bruce Boudreau. Gabby, thank you so much for doing this in short order. What was your reaction when you found out the news about Craig Berube being fired here?
Well, I was a little surprised. Just because it didn't happen at the end of the year, I thought, okay, once John got in there, he's going to do what a lot of guys do. They're going to wait and see, and he'd have a short leash next year. But obviously, he didn't, and Craig is gone.
Do you think anything changed, Gabby? Like, from the reports that they're probably going to stick with him to the announcement this morning that he's gone?
The only thing I can foresee that have changed would be if John or Matt's talked to players and players didn't mind a change. That would be the only thing that I could see that's changed right now, because they haven't been on the job too long. So I mean, they must, but I'm sure they've talked to a lot of people since they've got on the job or before they got the job, who they, these thoughts had come into play.
You always have a unique perspective because you've lived this. Do you get the sense as a coach that you could be on the block? Like, do you think Craig Berube had an idea this could be coming after his conversations over the weekend?
Listen, any coach that says they're completely blindsided is lying, because you can feel it. It's they don't talk to you as often. They're a little shy coming into the room after the games, things of that nature. They don't ask you what you think anymore of certain individuals, and so I mean, every time um, quite frankly, that I've been let go, except for the time in Minnesota. I was totally aware that it was happening. I was totally aware that it was going to come soon. And so you always have that feeling, and you prepare for it mentally in your mind. But that's, I think when they say, I have no idea, then it's really not the truth.
Now, after having time to digest that season and then understand what's happened since then, what do you think the problem was? Was it strictly an X's and O's system type of thing? Was it a culture thing? Was it a players not buying in thing? And what kind of guy do you think needs to come in to rectify it?
Well, it's interesting to say because I mean, an X's and O's thing, they used the same X's and O's the year before, and they ended up in first place. And they took Florida to 7 games, the only team to do that. So I can't believe it's that. I mean, I don't know what the culture would have changed with Mitch Marner being gone and a couple new players that were probably just very quiet players. They're not going to change any of the culture. So I don't know what would change. Maybe some guys just everybody decided to have a bad year at that time, or maybe I mean, they decided to turn a blind eye, and they did it last year, the year before, because it was Craig's first year. But this year they just didn't like playing that way, and they wanted to get back to the old way. But they were definitely nowhere near as good defensively. They had more injuries than the year before. There was a lot of things that didn't go right. I mean, I had picked Matthew Nyes to potentially get 35 goals and be a budding superstar just to join in with that group, and he didn't have a good year, and it's rare for a guy in his third year not to be good when he's on a trajectory of upswing. So I don't know if the room got worse, if players just decided, I don't like doing this, but there was some reason, and I can't put my finger on it yet because I'm not there. So I mean, of why the Leafs, especially the last half of the year, were so bad defensively. When I know Craig really prides himself on having a good defensive team, that's what won it in St. Louis. So it's it it's so far it's a little bit of a mystery to me.
It is, and we've been talking all show how the marriage never made sense between Chaika specifically and Craig Berube. But ultimately, do you think it was the right decision to move on here? And I could even throw it into a conversation we've had about the number 1 overall pick. Do you think that played sort of an impact in all this too?
Well, I don't know why the number 1 pick would have an influence. A lot of people out there think that, oh, he's a young player. We got to get a young guy in there who can identify and communicate with them. But I go the opposite way. I think I look at Joel Quenneville. I look at Tortorella. I look at Lindy Ruff. I mean, they're all guys in their 60s, and they seem to have great communication with the guys that they're playing with. So I mean, because I think the older guys, and Craig was what I would put into one of the older guys category. Uh, they're way more understanding, and they're not just X's and O's. But I mean, there's a lot going into that. There's a lot more going into coaching than there is just X's and O's. So, but maybe they're when they met that their their values or their way they wanted to approach the team were totally different. I don't know.
Now, Gabby, do you think there's a time crunch for this organization to get a guy in that place, or do you think they're going to take their time with it?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's a time crunch necessarily. I mean, what's a coach do right now? I mean, they're not out scouting. They're not at the Worlds. They're not. They're usually just getting ready to go over what they're going to plan. They're planning on for next year. So, I mean, I think they would like to have somebody in before the draft. That's the because then the coach pretty well knows, or definitely before free agent day in July 1. because I think a good GM and a good coach, they have good communication, and they know, and they've gone over what kind of team they think should work in that situation. And so it might, for free agents especially, why not pick the brain of a coach who might know some of these players that are out there? I mean, it seems dumb to me that if you don't use any asset that you can possibly use to get better. And as far as coaches go, I mean, there's no need right now. The playoffs are going on. There's no need to have them in place by tomorrow. But I think at the same time, before June or July 1st, you want the coach in there because he wants to prepare, and like a good coach will start preparing pretty early. Like I knew what, like I have my whole staff come in the day after the August holiday, and no matter when camp was, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we started working every day and preparing, getting ready, because we want the players to come in and think, wow, these guys are really on the ball. They really know their stuff, and they're really they're really prepared. And I think anybody that is a coach feels the same way. So no need right now, but definitely get your ducks in a row because you want to hire them before July 1.
Would this be an attractive job around the league, you think?
Come on. I mean, it's Toronto. There's two things here. You either embrace fear or you relish in it. Like, I mean, I would sit there, like when I went to Vancouver, they asked me the same question about being in a Canadian market, and that I'm going, man, you want to embrace it, because the belief is if you win, this is going to be the greatest place on earth. Nobody thinks that I'm going to go in there, or anybody's going to go in there and fail. So I think that every coach out there, if they don't think the team is on a upward spiral, I mean, they'll a good coach will believe that they can help turn it around to make it that upward spiral. So I mean, I don't think anybody's going in saying, and you can take any coach right now. If it was Scotty Bowman at 94, he'd say I can make that team better. But I don't think anybody would sit there and say, well, I don't want to go in there. They're going to be no good for 10 years. I think there's not a coach out there that would say that. And Toronto is probably the one position that everybody would love to have. There's so many Ontario natives, especially, that are out there. They're not coaching right now. They want to coach. Would love the Leaf job.
Lastly, I just want to talk about the process again, because you've lived it. How would this work? You'd contact your agent, they would contact the Leafs, and off you go. And along those lines, like the interview process, what are a couple things that, as somebody who would be coming into the mix, that you'd want to know about, like this job and what's going on here in Toronto?
Well, I mean, if you have an agent, you would have been on the phone to him already. Hey, Leaf job's available. Leaf job's available. Go talk to him. Or the next thing you know is you want to find a way. I like to think any coach would, or any proposed coach, or whatever the word is, would want to find some way to get in and talk to him, because the best way to get a job is to sell yourself. And the best, you can't do it you can do it a little bit with an agent, can get your foot in the door. A resume can go, oh, that's pretty good. But when you talk to them, whoever it is, and you sell yourself, and you sell your passion, and you sell your ideas, and your ideas for the future on how it's going to be, that's how you're going to get the job.
Gabby, great insight in short order here. Appreciate you doing this, and we'll talk soon. Okay, pal? Thank you so much.
All righty. Anytime, you guys. Okay.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Bruce.
Bye-bye.
There's Bruce Boudreau. And again, great insight, because he's lived it, head coach in this league, and just how things operate behind the scenes too.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't really understand the draft on why. Like, I kind of agree with him. What's the draft? We have to have a coach in place before the draft. Why? What is a coach? What's going to change? You're going to draft different players? I don't think so. The July 1 date, sure. I also wonder, how much autonomy do you give this new coach as far as who are you going to put around him, his staff? Does that guy come in and say, no, I got 3 guys in mind that need to be beside me? to make this thing work. And that's usually the case, right? You coach long enough, you've been in, whatever your history is with the league, you make a lot of relationships along the way. You're having beers with some guys that you've been, through the trenches with, and maybe talk a little bit about, like, imagine we ever got the helm of something one day and the damage we could do. And that the people close to you're aligned with already, and you think the same way. So it's often that a coach says, hey, listen, I've thought about this a lot, and I really feel like I could surround myself with X, Y, and Z, and these guys could really complement me, and we could have this, 4-pronged attack to be covering the D and the forwards and the PK and the peeper. And, this has been what I've been dreaming of my whole life. And I believe that this is what needs to happen. And I don't really, you start off, that's the question, right? Do you give the guy the autonomy to do that? Or do you say, no, here's the guys that are in place. Now you're going to work with them. Now you're at the helm, go and coach them. It's going to be interesting. There's just so many questions left to be answered. And I'm looking forward to this press conference here shortly, seeing if we can dissect a little bit and get any idea of where their head's at. I imagine they'll be fairly measured, but nothing but more questions coming up today, which personally I think is it's actually pretty exciting.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. A couple more super chats before we wrap. John writes in, a retool doesn't mean trading 23-year-old Matthew Nyes. I concur with that, John. He also writes in, just bring in a coach who will hold 88 accountable. Better yet, trade him. Kirk Muller, Bruce Boudreau, even Laviolette, just don't fuck it up. And BK Khaled writes in, what about John Gruden? Was with Isles and Bruins. I think Gruden will get a look for sure. They'll leave no stone unturned. I think this is going to be an extensive search here.
Yeah, it leads me to believe it's not going to be real quick. Do they have someone in mind? Did they, I don't think you can Berube without talking about, who would we bring in? And you got to make sure that it's better. It's an upgrade. It's checking the boxes that we need. Yep. And is that guy available? You'd think you would not necessarily do your due diligence, but at least have those internal conversations before you made a move like this. So it makes me wonder if they have someone in mind already. But again, I believe that this brain trust here that just came in will leave no stone unturned and will gather as much information. Even if they have their mind on someone already, I still think they'll do their due diligence and interview as many people as possible and really go deep with it to make sure they get it right. But again, it's I think no matter who they announce, there's gonna be a lot of noise around it.
For sure. It's time now for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid, ready to move on to the next puck drop. That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365. Download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connexontario.ca. So we got Game 5 tonight. Minnesota, Colorado in Denver, Ball Arena. What's your read on this one, Rosie? We went 2 for 2 last night, by the way. You had Buffalo and I had Vegas.
Yeah, we did. Ooh, baby. I don't know. Up 3-1. I think that's, I've got Colorado to win the cup. I don't know if they can shut down. Yes, I do. To shut down Minnesota, 4-1, tall task, but they are at home. Shit, that's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to take an overtime game. I think that those are two heavy hitters in that division, and it's not going to be easy for Colorado. That fourth one is always so hard to get. I think Minnesota at the very least. I'm leaning towards maybe taking them, but I just Colorado's so good and they're at home. I'm gonna take that +3, whatever it's going to be. That game will go to overtime, as I think that's pretty likely.
Just looking at the games in this series thus far, there's just been a lot of offense. 9-6, 5-2, 5-1, 5-2. 3 of the 4 games have hit the over. So I'll go with the over. I like Minnesota to win. I don't think they're going to go out in 5 games. And I think Colorado's battle tested. They probably win this in 6 games on the road in St. Paul. But I expect one of the best efforts of the year this tonight for Minnesota. So give me the Wild and the over. Rosie, we'll leave it at that. Another big news day. It's kind of interesting. We were wondering how we were going to tackle this offseason with the Maple Leafs not making the Stanley Cup playoffs. But, man, there's there's been no shortage of things to talk about. Like we had to bump Guy Godowski today, the head coach of Penn State, to talk about Gavin McKenna. I think Willie Desjardins was supposed to come on tomorrow. So we're going to have to kick this stuff down the road, and we're going to have to attack this coach search now.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like our we thought we'd have nothing to focus on, and there's an overwhelming amount of information coming at us that we like to dissect. It's almost, you almost forget that the playoffs are on sometimes with everything that's gone around Leafs Nation right now. I don't know if we would want it any other way, man. At the very least, it's very exciting. It's very interesting. There's tons to talk about. It never ceases to amaze me, this team, but it's a wild day. More news, and luckily enough, more news to come as well.
Never a dull moment. Thank you to Dave Pagnotta and Bruce Boudreau for dropping by today's very jam-packed podcast. Appreciate everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Don't forget to check out the LeafsNation.com. In podcast form, search Leafs Morning Take. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Thank you to producer Vic for all the navigating behind the scenes today. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.